The fork clattered against fine china as Elena Whitmore's hand flew to her throat, her eyes widening in terror. Around her, the restaurant's wealthy patrons continued their conversations, oblivious to the woman choking at table 7. Her face flushed red, then began turning an alarming shade of purple as she frantically gestured for help. But in a room full of people accustomed to others solving their problems, no one moved, except for the man in the worn flannel shirt clearing dishes near the kitchen door. Marcus Chen didn't think, he just acted. Later, Elena would learn that this was simply who Marcus was, a man who helped because it was right, not because of what he might gain. But in that moment, as his strong arms wrapped around her from behind and delivered the Heimlich maneuver with practiced precision, she knew only relief as the piece of lobster dislodged from her airway and she gasped, pulling blessed oxygen into her lungs. "You're okay now," Marcus said quietly, his voice steady and reassuring. "Just breathe. Nice and easy." Elena collapsed into her chair, tears streaming down her face, from the choking, yes, but also from the realization that she'd been seconds from death while the city's elite had simply watched. She looked up at her rescuer, really seeing him for the first time. He was perhaps in his late 30s, with kind eyes that crinkled at the corners, calloused hands that spoke of hard work, and an air of quiet dignity that made her chest tighten for entirely different reasons. "Thank you," she managed, her voice hoarse. "You saved my life." Marcus smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his tired face. "Just glad I was here. You should probably get checked out by a doctor, make sure everything's okay." Before Elena could respond, the restaurant manager appeared, frantically apologizing and offering her meal on the house. She barely heard him. Her attention remained fixed on the man who was already turning to leave, ready to return to whatever work had brought him to this overpriced establishment where she'd been dining alone, as always. "Wait," Elena called out, standing on shaky legs. "Please, at least let me know your name." He hesitated, then extended his hand. "Marcus Chen." "Elena." She took his hand, noting its warmth, its strength. She didn't offer her last name. For once, she wanted to just be Elena, not the billionaire CEO, not the woman whose face graced Forbes magazine, not the ice queen of Silicon Valley. Just a woman whose life had been saved by a stranger's kindness. Marcus nodded politely and disappeared through the kitchen doors before she could say anything else. That should have been the end of it. A moment of connection, a life saved, then separate paths continuing as before. But Elena Whitmore hadn't built a technology empire by letting opportunities slip away, and something told her that meeting Marcus Chen was an opportunity of a different kind, one that had nothing to do with business and everything to do with the hollow ache in her chest that all her billions had never quite filled. She found him 2 days later. It wasn't stalking, exactly. She'd simply asked her assistant to send a proper thank you gift, which required an address, which her security team easily uncovered. What surprised her was when she saw that address, a modest apartment in a working-class neighborhood, miles from the gleaming towers where she lived and worked. Elena showed up on a Saturday afternoon, driving herself in a nondescript car, wearing jeans and a simple sweater, the closest thing to normal she owned. She'd planned what to say, rehearsed it like a pitch to investors. But when Marcus opened the door with a little girl clinging to his leg, flour dusting his shirt and exhaustion etched in every line of his face, all her prepared words evaporated. "Elena." He blinked in surprise. "How did you?" "I wanted to thank you properly," she said quickly, then looked down at the child, maybe 5 years old, with Marcus's eyes and a smile missing 2 front teeth. "I'm sorry, I should have called first. This is my daughter, Lily," Marcus said, his hand automatically going to rest protectively on the little girl's shoulder. "Lily, this is the lady Daddy told you about, the one who was choking." "Did you die?" Lily asked with the brutal honesty of children. Elena laughed, surprising herself. "Almost, but your dad saved me." "Daddy saves everybody," Lily announced matter-of-factly. "He saved me too, from the bad place before." Something passed across Marcus's face, pain, love, fierce protectiveness. Elena understood then that there was a story there, one that had shaped this man into someone who helped strangers without a second thought. "We're making cookies," Lily declared. "You can help if you want." Elena Whitmore, who had negotiated billion-dollar deals with world leaders, found herself sitting at a scarred kitchen table, cutting cookie dough into shapes while a kindergartner directed her with exacting standards. Marcus worked beside them, and slowly, the story emerged. He'd been a paramedic once, Marcus explained while Lily arranged sprinkles on a star. That's where he'd learned the Heimlich, learned to act in emergencies. But after his wife died from an overdose 3 years ago, he'd gained custody of Lily, a daughter he hadn't known existed until social services called. He'd left the demanding paramedic shifts to cobble together a living from whatever jobs offered flexibility. Restaurant work, delivery driving, anything that let him be there when Lily got home from school. She's been through enough, Marcus said quietly, watching his daughter with fierce love. She needs stability. She needs to know someone's always going to be there. Elena felt something crack open inside her chest. In her world, people fought to get ahead, to win, to accumulate more. But here was a man who'd given up a career he loved, who worked himself to exhaustion, all for a little girl who needed him. It was the most extraordinary thing she'd ever witnessed. She started finding excuses to come back. To drop off thank you gifts that Marcus politely refused. To volunteer at Lily's school where, to his surprise, she proved surprisingly good at teaching kids about computers. To simply show up with takeout on evenings when Marcus looked ready to collapse from exhaustion. "Why are you here?" he asked one night, after Lily had fallen asleep between them during a movie. "You're clearly someone important. You could be anywhere, with anyone. Why spend your time with us?" Elena looked at this man who'd saved her life, who saved his daughter every day through quiet acts of love, who'd somehow saved something in her she'd thought was dead, the ability to feel, to hope, to want something beyond the next quarterly earnings. "Because you see me," she said simply. "Not my money, not my company. Just me. Do you know how rare that is?" Marcus studied her face, understanding dawning. "You're someone really famous, aren't you? Does it matter?" He thought about it, then smiled. "No, I guess it doesn't." The truth came out eventually, of course. Marcus learned who Elena Whitmore was when Lily's teacher mentioned the generous grant the school had received, courtesy of the nice computer lady. He'd Googled her that night, his eyes growing wider with each search result. "You could have told me," he said the next day, his voice careful. "Would it have changed anything? Maybe. I don't know. This is, Elena, we live in different worlds. What if I don't want to live in that world anymore?" The words surprised her as much as him. What if I want to live in a world where people help each other, where a man gives up everything for his daughter, where cookies and movie nights matter more than board meetings? Marcus shook his head, but she could see hope warring with fear in his eyes. "You don't know what you're saying. I know that in 38 years, I've never felt as alive as I do cutting cookie dough at your kitchen table. I know that your daughter has taught me more about joy than any success I've achieved. I know that you jumped in to help a stranger choking, not knowing or caring who she was, and that kind of goodness is so rare in my world that I can't let it go." She stepped closer. "I can't let you go. I have nothing to offer you," Marcus said softly. "You have everything I've been looking for my whole life. You just didn't know I was looking." 3 months later, Elena stood in that same kitchen, now theirs, watching Marcus teach Lily to make his grandmother's dumplings while rain pattered against the windows. She'd stepped back from the daily grind of running her company, discovering that with the right people in place, she could build a life that mattered in ways boardrooms never had. She'd been choking that day in the restaurant, but not just on lobster. She'd been choking on a life that looked successful from the outside while suffocating her from within. And Marcus, in saving her life, had given her something far more precious, a reason to live it. "Elena," Lily called out. "You're daydreaming again. Come help." As Marcus caught her eye and smiled, flower on his nose and love in his expression, Elena thought about how the most valuable things in life couldn't be bought, negotiated, or earned. They could only be found in the kindness of strangers, in the laughter of a child, in the steady presence of a man who'd showed her what true wealth really meant. Sometimes the most important investment isn't measured in dollars. Sometimes it's measured in moments, in the space between one heartbeat and the next, in the willingness of one person to jump in when another is in need. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, that moment of connection becomes a lifetime.